Hello, this section is entitled Initializing Data Systems with Products. This is about Bigtable. Bigtable essentially is a NoSQL database. Essentially means that you don't have a predefined schema. You essentially let the code organize the data. The APIs it has are exposed via gcloud, right, or the client libraries. And the only other twist, it has a little bit of a integration with Apache HBase, which is another open source solution. And so it looks, you can sort of interact like it was Apache HBase. It's primarily used in the context of big data problems, right? So they're not typically used as used for databases you might use to store like business logic. It's more like big data kind of problems. We'll get through briefly how the data is organized. It's a little different than I'm familiar with. I thought just kind of quickly go over that. So let's talk about that next. So as any other database, you have tables. That's the first concept. And within a table, you have a row. Each row has exactly one key, essentially, a row key. It's basically a column, but it's like it's basically how the table is indexed, right? And then you have something called column families. So I think the idea is you group columns based on how frequently they're used together, and keeps the data quote unquote close. So you have column families, and then within a column, you have a column family, you have the actual columns. And now, interesting enough, the next concept is within a column, you actually have what's called cells. That's actually what holds the data. And they're basically time-stamped versions of whatever that row and column was. So that's super new to me. The column families are new, and the time-stamped cells are new. But that's how the data is stored. Now, how it's operated is you run nodes. So here's your clients over here. When you fire up your instance, you actually get a cluster. A cluster is a grouping of nodes. Nodes are the compute side of the problem. And then behind the scenes, the data is stored in something you don't see. It's called the colossus. So you have your data behind, and that's kind of invisible to you to some degree. It's just that's how Google delivers it. So you're basically interacting with choosing how many nodes you have, and the more nodes you have, the more performant your big table instance will be. So that's really all we're going to do in terms of the theory. It's just, and then again, this is just a quick dip into this. We're going to go through their quick start real quick. Now, interesting enough, in their quick start, they spend a lot of time up front. You enable the API, that's clear. But then they go through this whole thing where you're basically creating credentials to do the operations. But since we're working right now as essentially the administrator in the account or in the project, we don't have to worry about that. So, and we're just going to run it from our machine. So we don't need to worry about any of this stuff. We already have gcloud installed. So you install CBT, which is the command line tool. So I've already done that, but CBT is the Cloud Bigtable tool, right? So the first thing you need to do after that is actually create an instance. So let's go do that. So before you can start interacting with them. So from your project, you create an instance. You could have just searched for, I think, Bigtable to find it too. I think here. Right. Get to the screen, create an instance. I'm going to follow the tutorial. So it's quick start instance. Quick start. Okay, apparently I can't spell. Okay, and then hit continue. Oh, and you can see the pricing. This is about 65 cents an hour, so it's on the more expensive side, right? And I think that's just going to be for one node. I'm going to use SSD faster, right? And You basically get, this is your node. You're building, well, this is your cluster, right? And then you're going to set where it's going to be. I'm going to do US. I'm going to do US Central 1, any zone, one node. I'm curious. I'm just going to change this for a second, see if it, yeah. Each node costs you that much. So that's 900. That's about $1.30 an hour to run 2 nodes. So I'm going to run 1 node. And just hit create. So that's creating sort of the infrastructure, the architecture to run your big store Bigtable tables and whatnot, right? Okay, so here it is right here. I think if you go into it, there's not much to see in it, right? Just maybe for some performance things, right? And there's no tables. It's like you can create tables from the UI. The quick start actually has to use the CBT tool, right? You basically, well, I may actually do it both ways. So first, let's follow the quick start. So basically, have you do is you create a file called cbtrc in your root directory, and that is cbtrc. I just did that. Oh, I guess I got rid of it, I guess. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong folder. cbtrc, yeah. So you basically, you have your project and your instance, right? And then you can use your CBT tool to do things. So for example, you create a table, you say cbt create table, my table. From the console, it looks like you can do the same thing. So let's look to see what it looks like from the console. Create table, right? And then you add column families, right? So this is basically the same thing. In fact, we'll do it from, just because we can, we'll follow along from the visual thing. It's a lot easier to see. So create table ID. The table is going to be called my table, then hit create. So you got a table, right? And then from a table, the next concept is you can create your column families. Let's see if I can do it. Well, I guess I have to edit it to create a column family. Add a column family. So in the example here was you have a table, right? And you're going to call it column family 1. So let's do that. CF1, right? And done. Okay. And then, so you're defining sort of the structure of it's interesting, sidebar here. Even though this is NoSQL, we are defining some schema, like we're defining column families, so it's interesting. And then once you have your column family, then you can store data. So it looks like there is a little bit of structure, but outside the column families, you just put in data, it looks like. So let's see if I can actually do it from the console. So if I add a column family, yeah, it looks like you can't actually add data itself. So you can create column families, but so my table here has my table. I thought I created a column family. Let's look to see. Okay, this is a little, I know it's a little confusing, but I'm going to look to see. I'm going to run this command here. Let's see what structure I have. I already got the table. Let's go ls it now. So cbt ls, was it my table? My table. So let's look. Oh, I must not have saved that column family. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again, actually. Add column family 1, save. I saved that. Oh, there it is. There's the column family now. So I've got my table, I've got my column family, and now I have a column family. I can basically now start storing data. So it looks like you cannot do that from the console here. I don't see any option. You know, I got the table, but I can edit the table. I can see the column family, but I can't do anything. Well, no, I can't do anything with the column family. Okay, so let's actually add data. And here's where the NoSQL part, because I'm not defining any more structure. So So basically I'm running this command. Let's talk about this command. So I'm setting on my table, first row, I am going to, in the column family 1 structure, I'm just defining a new column called C1 for column 1, and then I'm setting it, the value of it to be a string test value. And then if I do cbls my table, I still see that, but I think I need to do, other command is read my table. Again, this is an unusual looking output. I mean, this is just the way things are organized. It's, again, the way that data is stored in big tables. So somewhat unique. You've got your row, and then within the row you have your column family, and then you have your first column, and then within that column you have your first cell, which is test value at this point in time. So again, it kind of reflects the structure of your data. Okay. Let's look here to see if I can see any data here. Tables, no, nothing here I can see. So, right. Okay, so that's really all we're going to cover here. It is kind of a specialized product that, if you have a need for just a large amount of data in a NoSQL format that you kind of need to use, do a lot of writes to. It's typically used on like IoT, Internet of Things, where you have lots of things, you need to store lots of data quickly, and then you need to maybe process that data somehow. So this is a little different than the BigQuery product we looked at, where BigQuery was more like somehow you would generate a big data set, and then you would have to run basically these analytical queries against them. So that's a different sort of use case, right? That's like the data is already there and you need to run queries again. Bigtable is about ingesting a large amount of data to then maybe be processed later or digested somehow. Okay, so that's all we're going to do in this video. It's just a real quick tease. Well, we can delete our stuff now too. So to delete an instance, I think if I go back to here, I think if I go to this thing, maybe edit. Oh wait, there it is. There's the delete button. Quick start instance. No, I'm not paying again now. Okay, that's it.